Alright, hey guys, welcome back. This is stage 5 of the Intelligentsia Cup. And yes, my voice is weird, I am recovering from a cold. If you missed the first 4 stages, be sure to check out my channel and tell you what, why don't you click subscribe, it's totally free, and then you won't miss the next 5 stages. Because there are more crazy Midwest crit racing antics and crashes and field sprints, so you don't want to miss it. So let's talk about this race here. This is stage 5, like I said. It is the Lombard crit. People are riding up on sidewalks like you saw that guy doing right there. We'll talk about that in a second. Telling my teammate I'm on this. So I'm picking up action here. About half the race is already over. There's a breakaway of 6 up the road, maybe 7 at this point, and I missed it again. I was pretty active early on. Man, I just could not pick out a winning breakaway in this series. I tried so many times and joined so many small moves, but hey, that's the way the cookie crumbles. That's bike racing. So I am up towards the front right now, just marking moves, and I am definitely willing to join a chase group if one comes together. That's my intention up here, kind of burning some energy in the top 5, top 10 riders. Oh, and there's a group of 2 off the front right now that seem to be working together. So here I go. I launch, and I want to join this group of 2. Seem like motivated chasers. They've been out there for about a lap already, and I just want to join this rotation off the front, maybe make it to the breakaway up the road, because there's a lot of teams that are in that move that aren't doing any work, and it's kind of negative racing back in the field. So they're calling a preem here, which I'm not super thrilled about, even though I'm in good position to win the preem, because I don't want to spend a bunch of energy to win a preem at this point. I want to spend a bunch of energy to put myself in the race-winning breakaway. But let's talk about the course here while I'm chasing down Andrew, Daddy Longlegs up there, who is super powerful. He goes on to win a stage. I won't say which one because we'll get to it. But he is really strong. He's looking back at me, and I want to keep working here. But I look back and I realize we already have a passenger. This guy in the orange has a teammate in the breakaway. This is super discouraging, and this is why it's really difficult to put together a functioning chase group, because there's a breakaway up the road, especially if there's like 6 or 7 people in it already. Chances are the chase group is going to contain people who have teammates up the road, and they're not going to be doing any work. So I'm exhausted right here. Might not seem like it, 164, 165 beats per minute. That's something when I'm fresh that I can hold for like an hour or 2 hours even. But yeah, see, I'm trying to close this gap down to Andrew. He's going for the preem. I just can't close it down, and we're effectively caught anyway. So it was basically just going for that preem at this point. But yeah, guys, stage 5, so the 4 stages before this are real taxing, and this is what prolonged fatigue will do to you, especially the 2 days before this were road stages. So it doesn't just take a toll on your legs, it also takes a toll on your heart, and you can see that in your average beats per minute. All right, so let's talk for a minute about this course. It's like sort of a hot dog course. It's got turns 1 and 2, which I'm entering right now. They are so close together, it's almost like one hairpin. You don't really have time, maybe like one pedal stroke in between the 2. And then there's that big pothole on the left I just passed. It narrows and wiggles a little bit, and for that reason, people were jumping up on that curb quite a bit. Almost hitting pedestrians. I wish I had my camera going earlier. This pedestrian almost got nailed by a guy going 30 miles an hour up that hill. So you can see it narrows quite a bit on the back section of the course here, which isn't as big a deal as I thought it was going to be, because that hill and the hairpin, it kind of forces things into single file anyway. And then you can see it starts to widen right there on the left. It's like it's a cutout for the bus. And then it cuts back in about 50 meters here, and that's going to be really important later on. We'll get to that, but you'll see in a second. There, it cuts back in, and it's just a curb, like with a couple of cones on top of it. Super dangerous. So if you want to pass on the left back there, you have to be aware that that opening on the road is not going to last very long, and you're going to have to find a way to get back in. But yeah, we'll talk more about that later. But first, I want to talk about the 2 places on this course that I identified pretty early on as really good places to move up. The first one is on the left side of the start-finish. After the barriers, if you stay left, and then you come into corners 1 and 2 on the outside, even though it's the longer path, you could actually pedal through it, and people were often just jamming up the inside line, leaving the outside line open, and you could pedal through, carry a lot more speed into the hill, which is really the key to saving energy through this section of the course, is coming into this hill with as much speed as possible, so you're not squeezing brakes behind people who are trying to take the really tight inside line. You're able just to carry all your speed over the top, and you don't have to do this huge surge in power. And the second place to save energy on this course was through corner 4. See, the thing about this course, the start-finish straightaway is so wide. Unlike the back section here, which is incredibly narrow, the start-finish straightaway is so wide that you could take the inside line through corner 4 and you could just continue pedaling as people swung out to the left wide. I don't know why they were leaving this open. Like, it was just the easiest way to do a small surge in power and make up all kinds of places. All right, so eventually I gave up trying to bridge across. Other people gave up trying to bridge across too. There were just too many strong teams represented in that breakaway, too many strong riders represented in that breakaway, and we ended up getting lapped. So that was that for the race win. But hey, there were still Omnium points on the line. There's still cash on the line, so I was still trying to save my legs for the sprint finish as best as possible. And I wanted to talk about some tips on how to save your legs. So you don't want to be at the back, right? Because the back, you are at the whim of every rider in front of you, and if they're taking bad lines, you're kind of forced to take bad lines if you want to stay in the slipstream. On a not so technical course, you can kind of get away with staying at the back by what's called tail gunning, staying towards the back and then accelerating through the corners. But that doesn't really apply here on a technical course like this, because you're going to have to just be accelerating so hard out of every corner. Plus, it was single file so often that to go from the back of the field to the front of the field, that is going to take like a heroic effort for like 5 solid laps. So it's just a bad idea. You also don't want to be right up towards the front, because the top 5 riders or so, it gets really surgy up there. People are attacking and there's huge changes in speed, and that's the absolute killer. That's the one thing you're trying to avoid. I guess if you take one thing away from this, it's when you're trying to save your legs and stay efficient, you just want a very constant effort, and you don't ever want to be touching your brakes, obviously. You also don't want to be having to put in big accelerations, even if you can. Like, if you feel like you can, it just saps the energy out of your legs at a much faster rate than if you're doing one constant effort. So you want to preserve your speed throughout the course, take efficient lines, and the best place to position yourself to accomplish those tasks is around 15th wheel, 20th wheel. I know I talked about this on my channel before, but this is my favorite position because you can take great lines. There's not that many riders in front of you. Usually the people that are sitting top 10, top 15 all know how to corner really well. And also, you are not first in line to have to respond to those hard accelerations. Even if people in front of you are going super hard, it just kind of fills in, and you can't really feel those hard accelerations as if you were like second or third in line. I wanted to keep myself, 15th, 20th wheel, something like that, and it was at about, I want to say like 6 or 8 laps to go. I saw it was about to get fast. That's when you have to respond, and if you wait too long, which is a mistake that I made for like the first 3 years I was a Cat 2, which is just waiting and waiting and waiting until 3 laps to go or something. At that point, it's just way too late, because there's a team that'll have control on the front, and if you're trying to make up ground, then you're just you're out of luck, because you're having to exceed the effort they're doing on the front, and the effort they're doing on the front is to prevent people from moving up. So they are their goal is to keep their overall guy in the best possible position until the last possible moment when he is sprinting. So once I saw Project Echelon moving to the front and getting in position, I started moving up. All right, so we're coming up to 3 to go. I'll just talk you guys through the last 3 laps here, because at this point I've gotten myself into position that I want, more or less. I'm like here top 12 maybe, but a lot of these guys are going to do hard efforts and then pull off. They're on the Project Echelon, and their goal is just to keep it fast. They're going to sit on the front and keep it fast, so I want to stay behind their train. Problem is, everyone else wants to stay behind that train too, so I'm going to use some of the tactics I talked about in my last video. If you guys haven't checked that out here, I'll make a link to it as a card, upper right. But in short, in summary, the most efficient way to move up or maintain your position is just by doing it within the group here and within a draft. And the second best way to do it is to see if somebody else is moving up and to get in their draft as they move up. So like this guy on the left here, who is moving up on the left-hand side, which is kind of sketchy, because remember guys, there's that curb, boom, right there. There's that curb that you have to look out for. So if you're moving up on the left-hand side, be careful of that. Even if there's space, that doesn't necessarily mean it's safe to move up there. So I'm going to take these corners as efficiently as possible while remaining in the slipstream. I'm not going to let gaps open up, and if I do let gaps open up, then I'm going to make sure nobody can filter in without my wanting them to get in front of me, because I want to maintain my good position through here. Let's see here, 163 beats per minute. I still have some reserves in the tank. I've been saving my legs for the last 10 or 15 minutes of this race. 2 to go. Here we go, moving up on the left-hand side like I talked about before. This is my favorite line. I'm going to make up some ground here. I probably passed a couple of guys on the inside, but most importantly, I preserved my speed. So now, sure, I went up to 700 watts, but the guys on the inside who were jamming brakes, going up the curb, getting sketchy, they were doing a much bigger effort, trust me. And I was able to hold my position while maintaining a relatively easy effort. So now I'm just going to sit in through this backside and get this good draft while I can. I'm still pretty happy with my position. I could probably move up a little bit more. You see the swarms are coming on the left and on the right. This Project Echelon guy tried to move up on the left. He can't find a place, and boom, he hits that curb. Flips at least into the grass. It was the most graceful crash. But hey, that was the danger I talked about. That curb sneaks up on you. There's really no warning of it, and people won't let you in. With 2 laps to go, like a lap and a half to go on this course, in this field, people aren't going to let you back in, even if that results in your crash. So you just got to be careful about that. These guys are so aggressive. I mean, you guys probably know watching my videos how many crashes there are, how many close calls there are. These guys are racing like they got nothing to lose, which is a little bit scary. I'm going to move up on the left here. I've talked about this as my favorite line. 1 to go, last lap.
Because we got 1 lap to go! 1 to go! Project Echelon up front with 1 lap to go!
I'm on a good wheel right here. Hayden Strong. He's already won a stage, and he's gonna totally drop me through this corner because I just don't carry the same speed that he does. And I really should have been on that wheel a little bit better. Instead, look, I lose like 2 positions here in the last lap. Still pretty happy with my position. Still happy with the way I took that corner, though. Just didn't trust my equipment as much as Hayden does. But look at me now. I am behind the best sprinters in this field. That's Brandon up there. Brandon Fury, Project Echelon. Also, Dominican sprinter. Got the Skyline sprinter with some nice ass cheek showing there. Looks like he went down earlier. And I'm just elbows out right here, guys. I'm going hard. I am not letting anybody take my good position through here. I could probably be 2 riders up better, and I'm setting myself up beautifully for the inside of corner 4, which is something I talked about earlier in this video as an awesome line. Didn't take the best corner through there, could have fought a little bit harder, but now I got the inside line, head down. I am just out of the saddle now, sprinting. And right here, with 227 meters to go, I want to talk about this decision that I have, because on the right, there's a CS Velo guy on the fancy yellow Cannondale who's beginning to launch his sprint, followed by Mr. Bloody Butt Cheek on Team Skyline. And meanwhile, on the left, the best sprinters in the race have already launched, but it's a little bit crowded, so I have to decide between kind of a crowded, potentially faster left side, or kind of a guaranteed good position right side. And if I was in better position, like 3 or 4 more wheels up from where I am now, then I wouldn't have had to make this decision, but I don't know, I'll give it a second. Tell me what you guys would have done. So I ended up going left, and yep, I ended up getting boxed in. So down to 200 watts with 150 meters to go. That is never good. But I ended up finding a gap, and I just get my wheels blown off by the Dominican sprinter. And if you see that fancy yellow Cannondale on the right, see, he's like a good 3 or 4 wheels ahead of me. Probably would have been a better decision to go right, but hey, that's what I get for being out of position. And sometimes you're faced with those calls last minute, and they're not always easy. So I ended up 7th in the field sprint for 14th overall. Not the greatest result, but out of like 130 people, it's also not the worst. Got some money out of the deal anyway. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, see you at the next one.